My fiancée announced, "I'm wearing black to the wedding. White is too basic." I said, "It's your day too." Then she posted her edgy bride outfit, my grandmother's funeral dress she'd taken from my closet. When I showed my family the photo and they recognized it immediately, 30 male, need to get this out because I've been walking around my apartment for 3 days feeling like I'm losing my mind, and every time I try to explain the situation to someone out loud, I sound insane. So here goes. My grandmother passed away 2 years ago. She was 89, lived a full life, sharp as a tack until the last few months. She raised me from age 11 after my parents divorced, and neither one of them was in a position to do it properly. Dad was working offshore rigs, and Mom had issues I won't get into. My grandmother stepped in without being asked, without complaining, without a single moment of making me feel like a burden. She was the most important person in my life, and I don't think I'll ever talk about her in past tense without my throat getting tight. When she died, I inherited her house, which I sold and used the money to pay off my student loans and put a down payment on my current place, and a few personal items. Some furniture, her recipe box, a set of pearls she wore on her wedding day that are in a safe deposit box, and a dress. The dress needs explaining. It was a black silk dress, vintage 1950s, fitted with a high neckline and three-quarter sleeves. My grandmother bought it in the early 60s and wore it to every significant occasion that required black for the rest of her life. Her mother's funeral, her brother's funeral, her husband's funeral in 1998, her best friend's memorial in 2014. It was her dress for her grief, and every woman in my family knows it on sight. My aunt used to joke that the dress had attended more funerals than most pastors. When my grandmother died, I specifically asked for that dress. Not because I'd wear it, obviously, but because it was hers. It smelled like her perfume, white shoulders, even after 2 years in my closet. Holding it was the closest thing I had to hugging her. It lived in a garment bag in the back of my bedroom closet, and I hadn't told many people I had it because it's not the kind of thing a 30-year-old guy usually explains well. My fiancée knew about it. I told her the story early in our relationship, showed her the dress, explained what it meant, even got a little emotional talking about my grandmother, and she'd held my hand and said it was beautiful that I kept it. That was 2 years ago. That moment was one of the reasons I fell in love with her. We've been together 2.5 years, engaged for 7 months. Wedding planned for this fall. About 90 guests, modest budget, nothing crazy. I've been excited. Genuinely, stupidly, heartfully excited. First person I'd ever wanted to marry. About 3 weeks ago, she started talking about her wedding outfit. We'd already discussed it casually. She'd been looking at white dresses, sent me some links, the usual. But then she came home one evening and announced that she'd had a creative breakthrough. I've decided I'm wearing black to the wedding. Me, okay. Like a black accent, black shoes. Her, no. A black dress. Head to toe. White is too basic. Every bride wears white. I want to make a statement. Me, what statement? Her, that I'm not like every other bride. That our wedding is different. I want people to walk in and go, wow, she's bold. Look, I'm not a controlling guy. I genuinely believe she should wear whatever makes her happy on our wedding day. If she wanted to wear black, purple, neon green, I'd have been fine with it. My only thought was she's going to look great in whatever she picks. So I said, me, it's your day too. If that's what you want, go for it. She seemed surprised that I didn't fight her on it. Almost disappointed, like she prepared arguments she didn't get to use. But she recovered quickly and said she already had the perfect dress in mind and not to worry about it. I didn't worry about it. I should have. Last Tuesday, she posted a photo on her Instagram. Story first, then a grid post. The caption was something like, "When the bride goes black, black heart, not your grandmother's wedding." Hashtag edgy bride, hashtag breaking tradition. It was a mirror selfie. She was wearing a black silk dress with a high neckline and three-quarter sleeves. Fitted, vintage looking, because it was vintage, because it was my grandmother's funeral dress. I didn't recognize it immediately from the photo. She'd styled it differently, added a belt, had her hair up, but something about the silhouette nagged at me. I went to my closet. The garment bag was there. I unzipped it. Empty. I stood in my closet for a long time. My ears were ringing. You know that feeling when your body figures out something is wrong before your brain catches up? That. I went back to the photo and zoomed in. The neckline, the sleeves, the way the silk caught light. It was the dress. Without question. My grandmother's dress that she'd worn to bury the people she loved most in the world. The dress I'd told my fiancée the story behind. The dress I'd shown her and gotten emotional about was now an Instagram aesthetic. I called her. She didn't answer. I texted, "Is that my grandmother's dress in your post?" She replied 20 minutes later, "Babe, it was just sitting in your closet doing nothing. It's gorgeous. It's exactly the vibe I wanted. Aren't you happy I'm honoring her by wearing it?" I'm going to be honest. I didn't respond for about an hour. I sat on my bed and I could smell white shoulders, or I thought I could, and I pressed my palms into my eyes until I saw spots. I wasn't angry yet. I was something worse. I was hurt in a place I didn't know was still exposed. When I did respond, I kept it short. That dress was not yours to take. We need to talk about this in person. Her, "OMG, you're being so dramatic. It's a dress. I'm literally paying tribute to your grandmother by wearing it to the most important day of our lives." Me, my grandmother wore that dress to funerals. Exclusively. It's a mourning dress. You're wearing a mourning dress to our wedding and calling it edgy. Her, it's called repurposing. It's fashion. You wouldn't understand. I didn't respond after that. I needed to think. And I needed to not say something I couldn't take back, because what I wanted to say at that moment would have ended everything right there. Instead, I did something else. I sent the Instagram photo to my aunt, my grandmother's only surviving daughter, the woman who'd watched her mother wear that dress to every funeral for 40 years. My aunt called me within 3 minutes. She was already crying. "Baby, is that Mama's dress? Is that her funeral dress? Why is that girl wearing it? Why does it say not your grandmother's wedding? That is your grandmother's dress." I explained. My aunt went quiet in that specific way Southern women go quiet before they get very, very loud. Then she said, "Forward me that picture. Right now. I'm calling your uncle and your cousin and every person in this family who sat in a pew and watched Mama walk in wearing that dress to say goodbye to someone she loved." Within 2 hours, my phone was going off nonstop. My uncle, a man who doesn't text, ever for any reason, sent me a message that just said, "Son, handle this, or I will." My cousin, the one who'd been closest to my grandmother besides me, called me in tears and said she wore that dress to my mother's funeral. I watched her zip it up in the church bathroom. That's not a costume. That's sacred. My fiancée, meanwhile, was getting comments on her Instagram post, mostly from her friends, stunning, obsessed, queen behavior. She was responding with heart emojis and smiley faces. She had no idea what was about to hit her. I haven't confronted her yet. Not fully. I know I need to, but I want to do this right, and right doesn't mean in the heat of the moment. More coming. Update 1, 5 days later. Okay, y'all were right in the comments. I needed to handle this directly. Here's what happened. First, some context I left out of the original post because I was still processing. When I said my fiancée took the dress from my closet, I don't mean she sneaked in like a burglar. We spend most nights at my apartment. She has a key. She has clothes in my drawers. She has access to my closet the same way you'd have access to a shared space with someone you're about to marry. But, and this is the part that matters, she knew what that dress was. I showed it to her. I told her the story. I got emotional in front of her about it. And she took it anyway, without asking, because she decided her wedding aesthetic mattered more than my grief. That's not borrowing. That's entitlement. Day 1 after my aunt found out, I came home from work and my fiancée was at my apartment. She'd cooked dinner, which she rarely does, and had wine poured. I recognized the setup immediately. She knew something was coming and was trying to soften the ground. Her, "Hey babe, I made that pasta you like." Me, "I need the dress back." Her, "Can we eat first?" Me, "No, the dress. Now." Her face did that thing where someone's smile doesn't leave, but their eyes go completely flat. She set down the wine glass. Her, "I don't have it here. It's at the tailor." My stomach dropped. Me, "What do you mean it's at the tailor?" Her, "I'm getting it altered. Taken in at the waist, and the hem brought up a few inches. It's a little long for me. Me, you're altering my grandmother's dress? Her, I'm making it fit me. For our wedding. I thought you'd be happy that I wanted to incorporate something from your family. Me, we didn't incorporate it. You stole out of my closet, posted it on Instagram with a caption mocking the very concept of grandmother's weddings. And now you've sent it to a tailor to be permanently changed without asking me. That's not honoring my grandmother. That's erasing her. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes. Her, you're being insane right now. It's fabric. It's old fabric. Your grandmother isn't here anymore, and the dress was literally collecting dust. I gave it a purpose. Me, its purpose was being the last physical thing that smelled like my grandmother. And you took it to a tailor. That landed. I saw it land. Not because she felt remorse, I don't think she did, but because she realized for the first time that this wasn't going to blow over. Her, okay, well, I can't get it back from the tailor until Thursday. They've already started the work. Me, which tailor? She told me. I left the apartment without eating the pasta. I drove to the tailor, a small alteration shop I'd actually been to before for suit work. They were closed, but I called the number on the door and got the owner's voicemail. I left a message explaining that the garment was my property. It had been brought in without my permission, and I was requesting that all alterations stop immediately. The tailor called me back the next morning. Lovely woman, been in business for 30 years. She said they'd already taken in the waist and started on the hem. When I explained the situation, that was my grandmother's funeral dress, taken without my knowledge. She went quiet and then said, "Oh, honey, I can let the waist back out. The seams are intact. I always preserve the original seam allowance on vintage pieces. But I've already cut the hem. I can't undo that. 2 inches of my grandmother's dress. Gone. Because my fiancée wanted it shorter for the aesthetic. I picked up the dress that afternoon. The tailor didn't charge me. She actually looked like she might cry when she handed it to me. She let the waist out and pressed it and put it in a fresh garment bag. I'm so sorry, she said. If I'd known, I never would have touched it. I brought the dress home. I hung it back in my closet. Then I sat on the floor next to it for a while. The hem was noticeably shorter. It looked wrong, like someone had taken a photograph and cropped out the bottom. It was still my grandmother's dress, but it had been altered, literally and figuratively, by someone who didn't care what it was, only what it could do for her. That night, my fiancée came over. She saw the garment bag in the closet and said nothing for about 20 minutes. Then, her, "So, you went behind my back and got the dress from the tailor?" Me, "Behind your back? It's my dress." Her, "I was going to return it after the wedding. I was always going to give it back." Me, "You cut the hem." Her, "By 2 inches. It's not like I burned it." Me, "You altered an irreplaceable garment that belonged to my dead grandmother without my permission. And you're mad at me for getting it back." Her, "I'm mad because you're treating a dress like it's more important than our wedding." Me, "I'm treating this dress exactly as important as it is. You're treating our wedding like it's more important than my family's grief. Those are not the same thing." She didn't have a comeback for that. She picked up her bag and said she was going to stay at her friend's place for a few days and that I should think about my priorities. The next day, her mother called me. And folks, if you thought my fiancée was entitled, let me introduce you to the woman who raised her. Her mom, "I heard you and my daughter are fighting over a dress." Me, "We're not fighting over a dress. We're dealing with the fact that she took my grandmother's funeral dress from my closet without asking, posted it on social media, and sent it to a tailor to be altered." Her mom, "Okay, but she's the bride. She gets to pick her outfit. That's literally the one thing the bride gets to decide." Me, "She gets to decide from things that belong to her. My grandmother's dress is not hers." Her mom, "You're going to throw away a wedding over a piece of old clothing? Do you know how much we've already spent? The deposit on the venue is non-refundable. The caterer needs final numbers in 6 weeks." Me, "I didn't throw away anything. Your daughter took something that wasn't hers. I'm asking for accountability." That's it. Her mom, "You know what I think? I think you use your grandmother as an excuse to control things. My daughter told me you keep that dress in your closet like some kind of shrine. That's not healthy. I want you to know that I have never in my life raised my voice at an older woman. And I didn't then either. but my voice did get very, very quiet. Me, ma'am. My grandmother raised me when no one else would. She fed me, clothed me, sat with me when I had nightmares, helped me with homework, drove me to college orientation, and called me every Sunday until the week she died. That dress is one of the few things I've left of her. Your daughter knew that, and she took it anyway. If you call me again to tell me that my grief is unhealthy, I will take that as a very clear sign of where your daughter learned her sense of entitlement. Have a good evening. I hung up. My hands were shaking. That's becoming a pattern in these stories, huh? More in the final update. Because what happened next is what made me decide the wedding isn't happening. Update 2. Final. 11 days later. Last update. I need to close this door. After I hung up on her mother, I figured I'd get a few days of angry silence. Instead, the situation escalated in a direction I genuinely didn't expect. Day 6 after the original Instagram post. My fiancée had been staying at her friend's place. Radio silence between us except for one text she sent at midnight that said, "I can't believe you're choosing a dead woman's closet over a living woman's feelings," which I screenshot and did not respond to. That morning, I got a call from my cousin. She was livid but not at me. Apparently, my fiancé had contacted her directly, found her on Facebook, sent her a message. The message was long, and the general thrust was, "Your cousin is blowing this out of proportion. I was trying to honor your grandmother by wearing her dress. I thought the family would be touched. Instead, he's turned everyone against me. Can you talk to him?" My cousin's response, which she screenshot and sent me, "You took a dress that my grandmother wore to my mother's funeral and tried to wear it to a party. Don't contact me again." But here's where it got genuinely bad. My fiancée didn't just message my cousin. She messaged my aunt, the 67-year-old woman who'd watched her own mother wear that dress to bury people for 4 decades. My fiancé sent her a message that included this sentence: "I think you're all being overly sentimental about a dress that was just sitting in a closet. Clothes are meant to be worn, not worshipped." My aunt didn't respond. She called me instead. "Baby, I've stayed out of this because it's your relationship. But that woman just told me I'm being overly sentimental about my own mother's belongings. I'm done being quiet. You need to know something. Anyone who would take a grieving family's keepsake and turn it into a fashion statement, then tell the family they're overreacting, that person doesn't become kinder after a wedding. That person becomes more entitled. You do what you need to do, but I've said my piece." My aunt has never told me what to do, not once in my life. So when she comes close to it, I listen. Day 8. I drove to my fiancé's friend's apartment. I didn't go inside. I asked my fiancée to come down to the parking lot because I wanted to talk face to face. She came down looking like she'd been crying. Puffy eyes, hair up, oversized sweatshirt. Part of me wanted to hug her. The part of me that remembered the garment bag being empty didn't. Me, I need to say some things, and I need you to let me finish. Her, fine. Me, you took my grandmother's dress without asking. That alone would have been a problem we could fix. You posted it on social media with a caption that specifically mocked the idea of it being a grandmother's anything. That made it worse. You sent it to a tailor to be permanently altered. That made it irreversible. And then, instead of apologizing when I told you how much it hurt, you told me I was being dramatic, your mother told me my grief was unhealthy, and you messaged my aunt and cousin to tell them they were being overly sentimental about their own mother and grandmother. At every single step, you had a chance to say I'm sorry, I didn't realize how much this mattered. And at every single step, you chose to double down. So I need you to hear this clearly. The wedding is off. She stared at me. Her, you're breaking up with me. Me, I'm calling off the wedding. Whether we break up depends on what you say next. Her, what I say next. What about what you did? You went behind my back to the tailor. You turned your entire family against me. You chose a dress over our future. Me, and there it is. That's my answer. Her, what's your answer? Me, you just had a chance to say I'm sorry, and you listed my faults instead. We're done. She started crying. Hard. And I stood there, and I felt terrible because I'm not a monster, and watching someone you love fall apart in a parking lot is not something you feel good about regardless of context. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Certainty. Bone deep, unshakable certainty that I was making the right choice. Me, I'll leave your things in a box by my door. You can pick them up this week. Please leave my key under the mat. I drove home. I called my aunt and told her the wedding was off. She said, I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry it came to this. My cousin sent a text that just said, we're here for you. My uncle, the one who doesn't text, sent, you did right. Now, the consequences. Because calling off a wedding isn't a clean break. It's a mess. An expensive, logistical, emotionally gutting mess. The venue deposit, $3,500, was non-refundable. I'd paid it. That money is gone. The caterer let me cancel with a $600 penalty since we were still outside their final notice window. The photographer was understanding and refunded everything except a $200 booking fee. All told, I lost about $4,300 in deposits. That stings. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. That's real money for someone who works in supply chain logistics and doesn't make six figures. My fiancée, sorry, my ex, apparently lost more. She'd already bought accessories for the outfit. Shoes, jewelry, a custom veil. Yes, a black veil because commitment to the bit, I guess, totaling around $1,800 according to what she told her friend, who told a mutual friend who told me. Not my problem, but I'm including it because people will ask. The bigger consequence was social. And I didn't engineer this. It happened organically. When I called off the wedding, I had to tell people. Not in a dramatic announcement, just practically. Family members who'd booked travel. Friends who bought gifts. Co-workers who'd requested time off. When they asked why, I didn't lie, but I didn't embellish either. I said, she took something of my grandmother's that was very important to me, altered it without permission, and when I expressed how much it hurt, she doubled down instead of apologizing. I realized we have fundamentally different values. That's it. That's all I said. I didn't show them the Instagram post. I didn't share the texts. I just told the truth in one sentence and let people draw their own conclusions. But my family, specifically my aunt and my cousin, were less restrained. Not maliciously. They're just the kind of family that talks. My aunt told her church friends. My cousin told her book club. The story spread the way stories do in families, through conversations and phone calls, and you won't believe what happened retelling. And the story, even in its most basic form, is damning. She took his dead grandmother's funeral dress and wore it for Instagram content. Doesn't need embellishment to be devastating. Within about a week, the story had reached my ex's social circle through overlapping connections. We live in the same metro area. We have mutual acquaintances. And this is the kind of story people repeat because it's genuinely shocking. Her edgy bride Instagram post, the one she kept up this whole time, started getting new comments. Not from my family. From people who'd heard the story secondhand and went looking for the post. Comments like, wait, is this the dress that belonged to his grandmother? And this is so much worse now that I know the context. She deleted the post, but screenshots were already out there because they always are. Two of the bridesmaids, women I liked and respected, reached out to me independently. Both said versions of the same thing. They'd noticed controlling behavior from my ex throughout the wedding planning, but hadn't wanted to say anything. One said my ex had told the bridal party that I was too attached to the past and needed to move on from the grandmother thing. She'd been framing my grief as a character flaw to her friends for months. That one hurt, not in the sharp, immediate way that finding the empty garment bag hurt. In the slow, dawning way of realizing someone had been undermining your emotional credibility behind your back while smiling at you over dinner. The last thing that happened, and this is the part one keeps thinking about, was that her mother called me one final time. I picked up because honestly, at that point, what else could she possibly say? Her mom, I want you to know that my daughter is devastated. She's barely eating. She hasn't gone to work in 4 days. And it's because of you. Me, it's because of choices she made. Her mom, she made one choice about one dress and you ended an engagement over it. Me, she made a choice about the dress. Then she made a choice not to apologize. Then she made a choice to contact my family and tell them their grief was excessive. Then she made a choice, when I gave her one final chance to say sorry, to blame me instead. That's not one choice. That's a pattern. And patterns don't change after a wedding. They get worse. Her mom, you're going to regret this. Me? Maybe. But I'd rather regret not marrying the wrong person than regret marrying them. She hung up on me. I haven't heard from either of them since. That was 5 days ago. Here's where I am. The dress is back in my closet. It's shorter now, 2 inches of hem that I can't get back. When I hold it up, I can see where the original hemline was, a faint crease in the silk where it was folded for 60 years before someone decided it needed to be updated. I took it to a textile conservator, a woman who specializes in preserving vintage garments. She said she could stabilize the cut edge and add a facing to protect the silk from fraying, but she couldn't restore the original length. She did her work carefully, charged me $180, and when I picked it up she said, "This is a beautiful piece. The alteration is unfortunate, but the dress still has its integrity. It's still the same dress." I almost lost it in her shop, because that's exactly what I needed someone to say. It's damaged. It's different, but it's still my grandmother's. It still smells like white shoulders if I press my face into the collar and breathe deep enough. It's still here. She's still here in every thread of it. I'm not okay. I'm not going to wrap this up with some neat bow about how I'm thriving and everything worked out. I'm a 30-year-old guy who just called off his wedding, lost $4,300 in deposits, and is sleeping alone in an apartment that still has a save-the-date magnet on the fridge that I keep forgetting to throw away. I miss the person I thought she was. I don't miss the person she turned out to be. Those are 2 different griefs, and they sit in the same chest right next to each other. But I have the dress. I have my family. I have an aunt who speaks the truth, a cousin who doesn't hesitate, and an uncle who says what matters in 6 words or less. And I have Sunday mornings where I pour coffee and sit in my closet. Yeah, I sit in my closet, judge me, and hold a piece of black silk and remember the woman who wore it through the hardest days of her life with her chin up and her back straight. My grandmother would have called off this wedding too. I know that in my bones. That's it. Thanks for reading. Hold on to the things that matter.